Welcome to Palmistry for All. This is sanctified by my Father, Yodh He Waw He, blessed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I always get a lot of input from the Holy Spirit. That's what He does. I'm not here to teach palmistry, only to certify that it is just, that it is real. Now, in the Bible, you'll find it under Job, J-O-B, 3:7, colon, 3:7. So Job, chapter 37, verse 37, I will sealeth a mark upon the hand of man, that the sons of man may know his works. Man, do I get some feedback. In fact, I've started to use this as a watermark. Anyone that denies this has no concept of God. What Job is talking about are the powers of God. And before the crashing of thunder, the lightnings, and he will sealeth a mark upon the hand of man, that the sons of man may know their works. Now, as a young man, I agreed before I knew that I was blessed for going to find this information. And yes, that's in the Bible. You are blessed in Romans. You are blessed for the knowledge that you seek for the Lord. All knowledge is good, says so in the Bible. You can pervert it, you can make it unclean, but it doesn't start that way. It starts like a baby, clean, fresh. How it came into the world, now that's a whole other story, and Enoch tells the tale different, more elaborately than Paul does. Paul just says sin came into the world through Adam. And you go to Enoch and he gives a whole repetition idea of how that worked. But just sticking with what we are told, we're told to gather all knowledge. It even tells us, and I believe it's in the Corinthians, learn everything you can, even from those who are not holy. Even a non-believer can have information that is good. Whether it's possessed by a person that believes or doesn't believe is incidental to the fact that it's knowledge. When it goes in, you know if it's right or not. The Bible is full of stories about the fruit of the tree. We're the tree. What we do is our fruit. If I take a gun and I go out and I kill food and I feed starving people, then the gun is good. But if I take that gun and shoot somebody with it, now that gun is bad. And it wasn't the gun. It was the person. What do you do with what you have? If you are the kind of person that's going to use things to hurt people, then you probably shouldn't have knowledge. Something like this can hurt people. Oh no, it's a wonderful benefit. Now I learned from a book written by a gentleman by the name of Uriel. And no, I'm not here to plug his book. But what I found was real. Now, how do I know it's real? Well, there's only one way you can find out if something's real or not. I traveled extensively as a young person. Drove, hitchhiked. At this particular time I was driving, I had a vehicle, and I stopped into one of these help center stations. I forget what they call them, but you can go in and they have a telephone bank that you can use. They have job postings on their walls. They have access to job postings. They can get you a voucher for lunch if it's the right state, the right place. But mainly, it's a place where somebody that wants to go find work can go earn a living, go do something. I had a problem in that before they would even allow me to use their phone bank, they wanted me to sign up for social services. Well, I'm sorry, I was a healthy young man. You got an extra sandwich, okay, fine, but I am not. Poor planning on my part does not constitute an emergency on your part. Now, I did plan to come in, find work. That's what I did. And I'd be there for a while, and I'd hang out, and I'd get to meet the people the Lord wanted me to meet. And then I'd move along. Well, I was pretty annoyed by that. Well, somewhere I had come into possession of this book. And I'd browse through it. I looked it up in the Bible. Job 37:7 exists. He told me some interesting things. He said, these marks appear on one hand the way they were intended to happen, the way life granted it. In the right hand, it tells you what you have defined the world to mean to you. If you have no meaning, this hand looks like this one. Otherwise, there's differences, and it goes through the differences. No, it doesn't tell you you're going to meet a tall, dark stranger. It doesn't say you're going to find a pot of gold at the end of a rain. If somebody's telling you those stories, they are lying to you. What this does is it tells you everything that's happened in their past. You can look in there and you can tell if somebody broke a bone, had an injury is closer to it. Depending on the kind of box it is, you can define it better. As to whether it was a broken bone or if it was a fracture, if it was okay. But it tells you what happened. An incident happened. Okay? Certain incidences are positive, certain incidences are negative. Some of them are boxed, some of them, it's a science. There is way more in this book than you imagine. This is like trying to read Romans. It takes a little dedication and skill. Well, I'd read enough of the book, and there's another one called Chirognomy that he puts out. It talks about the shapes of the hands and relationship to the person. It's a little bit of that in here, but he's got a whole other book for it. I didn't want to take social services. I could not in good conscience go pick up food stamps and go buy something in the store. I'm sorry, I wasn't raised that way. And it occurred to me, you know what? I went down to a bar and I asked the bartender, the owner, if I could read palms. That is an unusual request. Anywhere you go. It's got to be. I had a blast. Because with limited knowledge, and understand that I never got so immersed that I know or even can claim to know even a small portion of what's in that book. What I do know with what we're told is accurate. That's all I can speak to. It is accurate. If it's done by the book. And again, this is the opportunity for man to destroy things. This is the opportunity for man to be evil, because they can take this and they can claim to be something they're not. Maybe people to pay attention. Some people make a living doing this stuff. It was never intended for that. This was a science for kings that allowed them to know who was in their court. It was the world's first bad guy detector, because it's in your hand. And I forget where they are, but there's a couple of marks that can tell you that if you're a killer or not. The hand that's cold, shows no light through it. Little things. they add up to being something you can tell. And the thing is the lines will develop, and this is where God comes in. 20 years before they happen, that line will be on your hand. 20 years. They change. If you had a copy of your hand from when you were younger to now, it has changed. And we know that every 7 years, the body changes. You're a different person. Yeah, you're in the same shell, but you should have learned enough in 7 years to have corrected the things that were wrong with the past 7 years. It's kind of the way it's supposed to work. If you find a piece of knowledge, find it to be useful or not useful. I found that what this gentleman said was accurate. I can't speak to his motives, although according to his writings, this is a research. This was a passion of the heart for him, which means that he wanted to make sure what he put out, what he told us, was accurate. And I have to say, I was amazed. I could look in a stranger's hand, and trust me, these are people that I've never seen before or since in my lifetime. I didn't have a clue who they were. They were just people sitting in a bar and said, yeah, over here. And I knew the major lines and kind of what to look for. And enough that I could answer the question, was it real? It was real. How it's going to benefit you, I don't know. I've never had the stones to devote my life to learning this. I caution you, if you do something like this, make sure you are 100% accurate or say nothing. This is one of those things that, because of the information you have, you become believable. I can tell you what your parents were like, which one was artistic, whether you were like them or not. Basic stuff, but enough that you go, wow. You know, how'd you know this? How'd you know that, I'm different? How do you know I'm an outdoors person? How do you know I'm kind of a bookish person? How do you know that once you've established reality in small things, unfortunately, the human mind starts to accept things in larger patterns. So it's like, well, if you're right about that little bitty thing, you must be right about this great big thing. If you look in somebody's hand and you say, it looks like, because there's a time of death in your hand. Yeah, check your clock. But if you're wrong, if there's a line behind it that mitigates it, you've just subject somebody to false information that's going to squirrel their brain. When somebody says it's dangerous, it's not because it's false. It's because it can impugn knowledge. You can go against that which you know to be right. This is what belief does. This is the way we're built. If we believe in something, we have to believe. It's not you can cut a portion of it off and save it for later. You either believe 100% or you don't believe at all. The problem with information like these books is that if somebody says something that's wrong, you can anticipate and you can change your own fate. And we can already change our own fate. That's what we do. That's our job. To move towards the best we can. We'll do that one in another lesson. But right now, anything you learn, understand the potential for good, understand that man has a potential for evil. We are all that is good, we are all that is evil. As Paul said in Romans, wherever I seek to do good, there also is evil. It's always there. We make that choice whether to make it good or bad. This is a real book, it's a real science. But again, in the wrong hands, it can hurt somebody. You need to be aware, because if you're giving somebody a bum steer, it's not on them. You are responsible for you. You want to know what responsibility means? Paul the Apostle stopped on the road to Damascus. He was going to prosecute Jews that were converting to Christianity. He got dropped on the ground, blinded by the light of Christ. Christ had been hung on a cross already. He came back just to visit with Paul. He spent 3 days with Paul, where he told Paul, you are going to live through the most horrendous life you've ever had. You are going to know fear every day of your life. Fear of death, actual, real. People want to kill you, and tried to on numerous occasions. This is what you pay as penance for prosecuting and killing all of the people that were teaching the word of Christ. But if you do it faithfully, and while you're hanging on a wall and they're waiting to kill you, you will write this information down so it can go into the future 2,000 years. And the sword will not touch your body on the day of your death. You will know peace. The same is true for all of us. If we take good information, if we take anything that belongs to the Lord and use it for evil, you're going to pay a penance for it. Paul says we're already marked. We're going to heaven or we're not going to heaven. Why the belief system? Because we have to stay on track to be there. That's what determined whether we were there or not. You are responsible for you, to stay on track for you, to build up the grace for you. Are you one of the chosen or not? Are you willing to do what's necessary with the information we have? Are you willing to do something good with it? Or do you seek to fill your own belly? Guys, if you decide to learn it, good luck. And walk.